everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, or welcome back if this is your 12th Nancy Drew Season 3 episode review. Here we are again, man. We're approaching the end of another Nancy Drew season. It's been 3 of them so far, 3 runs we've done. It's crazy, man. It's really crazy. I'm happy that, another season's come to close, that we get to continue this story. Hopefully we will get another season, hopefully, should we get one. But at least for the moment, it's bittersweet that we're coming to another end. So far, this has been a very tight season, but a very strong and consistent season. I think I don't want to get too ahead of the curve since our Season 3 review won't be posted for at least a few more weeks. But this is honestly a strong campaign for contender for the best season so far of the 3. But I'll say more of my thoughts about it later. Because on this week's episode of Nancy Drew, it's always the misdirections where I thought the promo was like, are we really going to spend time on another mystery before the big finale? But no, they managed to tie even elements from last season into this current end game that Tempest has. And the stakes are high. And honestly, this was mostly dealing with emotional fallout and dealing with the just figuring out the pieces and where they all lie. And although there was moments where I was kind of questioning, did we really need this thing or this thing? But honestly, through and through, this was a great episode, and this definitely does set the stage for a very intense end game that will leave us wondering where we would go from here if we do get picked up for Season 4. Because most of the times with Season 3s, it is normally the end of one big chapter, because when you do 3 seasons, it's kind of like, okay, you had this formula that worked for 3 years, now we should break the expectations and go to somewhere new for Season 4. And how does that turn out? We'll see eventually, or hopefully we will. But for the time being with this episode, I'm definitely excited for next week's finale, and I'm just curious to see how this will all come to a close. So, before we go any further, again, let's go through the Butcher recap and talk about this week's episode of Nancy Drew. So, we begin with... damn, I'm always forgetting. So we begin with a very weird flashback to 1971. For some reason, and we see a couple kids running in the woods. I think they see like a decapitated, forearm, hand type thing, and they look up ahead and they see a woman who's supposedly, I think she's either skinning a body or she's burying something, and she notices the 2 kids. And like any traditional story, the kids just stand still, and I'm presuming the woman just takes them away. And this was a confusing, I get the premise of the flashback here, I do get it, but honestly, it was a bit confusing, did this woman have some sort of magical connection, or was it just coincidental? For me, my brain is not the best in the world, so any sort of leaps in logic here, I need to someone to hold my hand, that sort of thing. What happens next? So the only things that I do remember of this flashback is we see we're in the orphanage we saw last season, if you remember that episode. So this is kind of continuing that story thread a little bit, kind of expanding it a little bit more. It wasn't just a one-off thing. It actually does have some substance to it. The woman, we presume, is... That's the thing about, the way they portray the scene. I don't think this woman is the best caregiver in the world, but I don't think she's the worst. Because I think we just have the perception that there's something shady about her. But in reality, at some point, they just all disappeared. The kids and her, they just disappeared out of nowhere. And no one ever knew their existence. And then we kind of just ended off there. Then we cut back to present day, where I believe a lot of pieces are in motion right now. The Drew crew's trying to, reassemble. They lost, sadly, their guy, which was the guy that Tempest was after last week. I completely forgot about that, because I thought when he was in police custody, I'm okay, it's probably another person, but no, it was him. He got taken away by Tempest. So they're trying to find her and him, but they're really not doing any luck right now. Park comes back in to kind of reassist the team going into these final 2 episodes, and it's a bit awkward per se. Because, last week, Ace finally confessed his feelings for Nancy. Nancy did not give her direct answers. And, of course, obviously, she still has some feelings for, of course, Park. And that does make things complicated, because she likes Park, because it's an equal thing. But also, Ace has a comfort feel to her. But she's not quite ready to admit that yet. So it's kind of a really bad time for Nancy Drew herself. So the teams this episode is Nancy's going to go off with Park and Ace to kind of try and find any sort of connection to Temperance and trying to figure out where he is. The third potential Hearts killer victim. Meanwhile, Nick and Bess are off to the youth center because someone's going to take care of those kids. And George, finally, for once, someone is responsible to say, okay, I'm going to stay behind and watch the claw. And finally, someone in this crew is finally responsible to do this. But in reality, Nancy's just needing her to stay on board because Mr. Drew and Ryan are there and they don't want them to get involved in this for whatever reason. I know it's for their safety, but like, they're adults. They have some resources. They could help y'all out, but like, okay, then they're just sitting there at the diner, just dad to dad, that sort of thing. And, and George's just, her only responsibility is to make sure they don't leave that booth and they're not aware what Nancy's up to, as always. Also, George neglected to tell her sister's dad her and Nick broke up, mostly under the pretense reason that Nick was the first stable, healthy relationship George has ever had, and is also like kind of the first time the fan sisters had like a very dependable male role model in their lives that isn't running away or has been there for more than a month, which is great for them. And, and they're very much ready to, they're still in the mindset of like, oh, he's going to be my brother. And, we're going to get close and we're still going to be a family, which is like, it's so heartbreaking. Cause like, at least for these little sisters, like that's when you found someone special, is when your own siblings already consider them a sibling, which I'm like, when you find that person, don't let them go, because in reality, they're gonna stick around a long time. And obviously we know why George and Nick had to break up, but for them, they're still not there. They're not at the maturity stage to understand fully what is there's a difference between a breakup and separating. There is a difference. They separated. They still love each other, but hopefully they'll get back together. But right now they need to be separate. And that's something they just can't admit right now. So I want to know what storyline I'm going to go for first. I think I'm going to go for that first because I'm already getting emotionally invested into there. So we just see George flip-flopping between trying to keep the fan sisters occupied and just believing that, yeah, me and Nick are still together, don't worry about it. And, every time Ryan and Mr. Drew try to leave to go do something else, George just piles them out. Hey, here's some free clam chowder, or here's some free coffee, or here's some free soda, or here's some free pie. I'm like, dude, this was like the right day to get some free shit at this restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Well, obviously not for everyone. Eventually they do find out, like, yeah, we know you already. There's absolutely no way you're going to give us all this free stuff and not charge us. And George admits that, yeah, Nancy's just trying to keep you away from this, plot to go save the town, stop tempers, that sort of thing. So they're like, the normal, cool. We've done this a couple times already. But then once that's kind of figured out, George's attention is finally realizing, yes, she needs to tell her sisters, because eventually she just can't keep up with the charade forever. Eventually, Nick's not going to want to kiss her because they're not in a relationship. And also, eventually it's just going to be known that, yeah, we're not together anymore. And she even talks to Ryan about it. And, Ryan finally, is getting that dad talks going. It's very rough. It's very still early on, but he's getting them through. It's actually quite reaching the point, thankfully, to George. And she finally decides to have a sit down. She talks with her sister, and it goes exactly the way I expected it, where her older sister is very much, I understand. The younger two sisters like, what did you do wrong this time, George? What did you do this time? And yes, my last statement could easily be George from the show or my own George. So I apologize, George. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. So they run out of the claw, very upset, very disgruntled. They already blocked her from social media. Like, it didn't take that long. Like, dude, that's your own sister. Like, again, that's another thing. Like, they like your boyfriend or your partner or your girlfriend much more than you when they block you for breaking up with them. That's honestly, that's honestly funny. And sadly, George has to leave it there since, of course, the temperance matter is getting more important. So she has to save that for the finale. So, again, at least I will give her credit that she was honest with them and she didn't keep it as long going as she could have. If it was any other comedy, she probably could have kept that going for a full season before that's eventually realized. So I think the next plot point is Bess and Nick. I think Nick starts to get a little bit worried about the kids, and Bess starts to catch on that Nick's kind of being a little bit sus right now. And Bess getting the magical training somehow off screen. She kind of can see hexes around people apparently, and she notices, yeah, these kids are hexed. And Nick's like, don't say it out loud. Tempest could be healing, which I'm like, Tempest is doing her own thing, man. I don't think her hearing about your little ruse is going to help anything. Plus, they easily talk about it openly throughout the next 45 minutes. But she tells Bess that, yeah, he's been in the know about certain temperance plot points for a while, but he was scared that if he did reveal this information, then the kids would die. So right now the priority is, okay, how do we unhex the kids and how do we free them so that temperance can use them against the leverage against the team? So Bess goes back off to the Historic Society to figure out any sort of thing she can about hexes. Thankfully, between the power of an hour to 2 hours, she finds out what's going on. Sadly, the symbol that's burned in the back of their heads is a very commonly used hex symbol, so it doesn't really narrow it down too much, but Bess requires more research, and she manages to coincidentally narrow it down to 4 hexes. And only because plot convenience, basically. Honestly, I'm pretty sure this would have taken hours and hours or a montage, but no, it was just, hey, I'm going to use these like very old-fashioned, and dude, when I saw these freaking, these old, drawing boards that I've only seen since elementary school, I'm like, that brings me back. And the way that she flips them over, it's like, I miss those days. Like, if there was any part of elementary school that I do miss, it's those freaking drawing boards. And I think one time, I think that one of the teachers finally allowed me to, yeah, you can draw whatever you want. We don't care. It's the end of the school year, which I'm like, dope. That was awesome. I missed that. I should go back to my school someday, my own elementary school. It'd be fun. So Nick picks randomly one of them because one of the kids demonstrates headaches. So he thinks like, this is the one, that's it. Let's put an end to it. Let's be done with this. So Bess performs the ritual. It seems like at first glance that it worked and the kids are fine. But upon closer inspection, their noses are bleeding and it realizes, no, they just made it worse. So that was not the hex. That wasn't at all. Whatever the heck they did, it made the symptoms worse. So now Nick feels like an even bigger piece of crap. Jumping back onto the main storyline for a second, since we're going to get a convergent point eventually. So I believe they go into Temperance's headquarters, her castle, not castle, manor, whatever the hell you want to call it. They had, and even Nancy says it's best, like, this is a villain's lair. I'm like, that's what I've been telling you before. Like, yeah, it's a villain's lair. Like, why are you easily not surprised by this? I mean, come on, look at this decor. I mean, I'm pretty sure this was like, honestly, like a pre-existing Vancouver building that they probably repurposed. I'm honestly being honest with you, because there's absolutely no way they just recreated this. I mean, if they did, kudos to them. If they don't, I was right. You look around and also just, you could just feel the atmosphere in the air between Nancy, Ace, and Park. Nancy's very low-key torn between the two people. Park is trying to be on the, hey, are we an item? Are we gonna be a couple? You know, he's on that point of conversation. Ace is being given the cold shoulder because, again, Nancy doesn't want to talk to Ace until she figures out what the heck she has to say to him about his whole feelings confession. But while during their search, and also, oh yeah, I forgot, there was a scene where Temperance, and again, and this is another one of those, Joe only complains about this moments where Temperance has the ability to transport herself between this plane of existence and the limited space, as they call it, the one that the one that Ace and Hannah were in earlier this season. So she has the ability to travel through and that's where she trapped the dude. He's just trapped in the limited space until it's time for Temperance to use him. So technically he is at the castle, but they can't see him. And since he doesn't have any sort of connection to Nancy or the others, there's absolutely no way he's going to contact them to figure it out. So I think what happens next is they find a loose, and again, this is one of the benefits of having a pro detective on your team. They find a loose stone tablet and they release it, and they find half a piece of this wooden antler with an inscription on it. And Nancy has a flashback to season 2 where she remembers she briefly saw it for a moment. Now I have to if you forgot from last week's episode, I did say that I would do a proper spoiler-filled review of season 1 down the line this year. Whenever we do that for season 2, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to be careful on that rewatch. I'm like, is this honestly, like, was it there? Did they actually plant that seed that early? Or was this just a repurposed scene? Because I thought for like a second, like, we were not going to go back to that set. That was it. It was probably careful planning, but since they were already there, I'm pretty sure they could have filmed an extra shot. So I want to double check next year when I go rewatch that. So someone please remind me. Where do we go from there? Yeah, so once they figure out that, yeah, the other piece or something similar to it was found at the orphanage last season, they all head out there, coincidentally in all their own cars, because awkwardness right now. So they barge the orphanage like, we know this place already, this ain't our bitch, and they go to the main office where they found the piece last season, and it's not there. Not surprising, since the last time we saw that building, it was swarmed with police officers, investigators, and a detective that had literally no fucks about the world. So I'm not surprised it got misplaced somewhere. So they start looking around and they find the antler symbol carved on one of the floorboards. And Parker's like, "What's that?" And Ace is just coincidentally saying, "That's a mystery for another day." And I'm just thinking to myself, did you just tease a season 4 mystery? Obviously, it's related to this mystery, but like, I thought for a second, because again, my brain is so limited right now, that I honestly thought that, oh, they're actually doing some clever teasing for season 4. Which they weren't. They weren't in that case. I mean, they could, but I don't think it's going to be related to it. So, Nace and Park coincidentally just rummage around trying to find the piece, and they have a brief, like, I think their last flirtatious moment where, like, they're close. Park is like talking about like satisfying and temptation, and just like, can we just damn kiss and like make ourselves official already? And Nancy's still torn, like, is this the right move? Do I just push Ace away? She's still confused. Thankfully, Ace finds the piece in time, and they put the pieces together. So it forms some sort of phrase or statement, but obviously it's an ancient language, so they decide to hit up this random... Again, she could have been in an earlier episode. I forget. You know me already, so... Sorry about that. I had a lot of spaghetti tonight. They go over to her place, which is also a new place of her. I'm not really, is she the Historic Society's replacement? I don't think she is, but like it just kind of seems familiar. So she agrees to translate for them, and Park has to deal with an outside call from Boston, which I initially thought like, oh, he's gonna get the news that he's transferring to Boston, so him and Nancy are done, or they're gonna do long distance, or Nancy and Ace have their first one-on-one since the confession, and Nancy's like, look, I'm just being honest with you. I am trying to stay distance from you right now. I am trying to not talk around you because I am legit. I don't have the words right now to talk. I honestly thought for a second I was going to mute myself again. I'm like, not this time, bitch. Not this time. Apologies for my language. And Ace just boils it down like, hey, you don't have to tell me anything now. Just, I'm here for you. I will always be here for you. And when you're ready to talk, I will be here to listen. Which honestly, again, this is why Ace is perfect boyfriend material. Again, I don't know why. I know why Hannah broke up with him, but like, I'm just saying, like, come on. Actually, I was gonna get a whole other point of conversation there that's completely not related to this episode, and it's gonna confess something about me, but I'm gonna shut up there. I don't know what happens eventually. I know we eventually cut to the translator. She's downstairs in the basement. She's getting most of the phrase out right, and then Tempers just shows up behind her and just says, "Yeah, I can't have you giving this information to them, so stab." And again, why do you stab? Like, I don't understand villains, like, purposely keeping their victims alive. I don't understand. If you're a villain and someone's risen to your plot, just kill them directly. Do the walker kill them in the brain, kill them in the heart. Like, do something that's going to instant kill them. Like, if you're keeping them alive or just giving them a chance to survive, you're easily just spelling yourself for doom on your doomsday plot. So, Temper's just the latest one of, villains that are stupid. So we just presume she's gonna die, but later on Park tells him, yeah, no, she's gonna be fine. Thankfully the bleeding wasn't too much, thankfully, and they managed to get a lot of the phrase out. So there's some sort of key. There's something that she still needs, and they're trying to figure it out. Eventually, this is when they get called in from Nick and Bess about the whole Hex thing, and the 5 of them regroup back at the youth center. And right now, okay, the priorities have shifted suddenly. They gotta fix these kids. They gotta save these kids somehow. So they get Park to kind of help figure out like what Hex of the 3 would Tempers most likely cast in order to like do her deed. And Park has a pretty good guess, and Bess shows him outside to the freaking giant ass, like not giant, like the thin hole in the ground, and he's starting to like get it together. Like, yeah, even though this guy's just still new in the world of magic, rituals, and everything else, he still knows like basically like, yeah, this is the Hex, like this is most likely it, and he was right. So once they get that conclusion, and once Bess tries to nail down, okay, how do we fix this, she's kind of saddened to the fact that when she finds out that, yeah, the only way to like we can only either limit the Hex's effects, or we could just transfer them to another host, but the only person who can break the Hex is the original caster to break it herself. So that means Tempest, and she's never going to do that. She's never going to give up her leverage just to save a bunch of kids, because, spoilers, Tempest is a bitch. Apologies for that. So... Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, like, the thing that I was, like, kind of, like, only that I would complain about. Tempest is a 100-year-old plus individual, even longer than that, I'm pretty sure. and she somehow finds time to paint her nails. I know, like, of all things for me to complain about, that's the thing. Yeah, you're welcome. So, once Nancy hears this information, not about the nails, about the ritual, she decides, you know what? We know that Temperance needs me alive for whatever her final plan is. Let's give her that big choice, and let's put all the hexes onto me. So I'm like, Nancy, for the upteen billionth time on this show, you're putting yourself in moral peril again before the finale. Like, how many times do we have to keep doing this, my girl? How many times? It's getting old. Can we let someone else, like, okay, I know George, like, let Bess do it. Like, I don't, actually, no, not Bess. No, we can't do that. Damn it. This sucks. Yeah, so Nancy's going to get all the hexes, because by that point, Temperance would have no choice if she really does care about Nancy, and, or, not care about Nancy, but if she's very vital to her plot, she needs to keep Nancy alive, which is to take away the hexes. So, that's the plan there. I know, eventually, we do get a scene before everything comes to a head where Nancy talks to Park, and we get this revelation from her that, like, yeah, she respects Park, she thanks him for all the work that he's done for them so far, but she wants to stay only as friends. That she does not regret and again, it's so weird, like, they're not classifying as a hookup, they're just classifying as a makeout, steamy sex. I'm like, dude, y'all have sex. Y'all had sex in that cloak closet. Don't deny it. We saw it. Ace saw it, sadly. But they're gonna stay as friends. And I'm assuming that by the end of the season, Park's gonna transfer back to Boston. That's my wholehearted prediction should everyone live out of this finale. So does that mean Nancy picked Ryan? Well, Nancy picked, I don't know why I keep getting Ryan and Ace confused. Does that mean she picked Ace? Possibly, but again, until she says the words out of her mouth, there could be any other type of reason until why she told Park, yeah, I just want to stay friends. I know eventually Ace does find out that, that they have a location on the guy, and of course it's in the woods because Temperance locked him. Like, she literally planted stakes on the ground for him to get tied up, and then once the night turns black or something, Copperhead shows up, all very creepy and the guy's just like struggling for his life. Park is running for his life to try and go save him. Eventually it's too late. The Copperhead does freeze his chest and like punches his freaking cavity out and gets at that hard, which turns ice cold right away. And it turns out the only reason Temperance did that is because she had him drink a little concoction she made before she brought him to the woods, which is basically like a magical tracking device. So the heart's in the Copperhead now, and it's going to lead her to the fourth individual who's going to be playing a key role to bringing her daughter back. So so Temperance's plan is slowly coming together. We know Nancy tells Bess to perform the transference. It worked. You got all these like 10 ring looking symbols under her neck, and I'm like, I want to scratch that for some fucking reason. She calls up Temperance right away, tells her, look, I'm Hex, bitch. If you want me alive for your master plan, you're going to have to save me. And Temperance is like torn, like, I hate these humans. I really do. So right now everyone's aware. Well, okay. So before we get to like the big final revelation of the episode setting up the finale, Bess is back over at the Historic Society, or she's back at the Historic Society trying to get some more research done. Nick gives her a call that he's gonna, and honestly, I thought this sounded like a suicidal call for a second. I'm like, I really hope it isn't. I really hope. But it just seems like Nick just is gonna have to step away for a while, because not only did he's done so many mistakes this year, especially risking the lives of these children, even though he built the youth center to kind of protect these kids, to give them another a safe haven, and he put them in harm's way. He's not sure what is wrong and what he needs to do. And honestly, that kind of just thematically explains his entire character journey for the season. Like, he has problems. There are issues in him, and he has a lot to work out. And this definitely just proves to him more than ever that he needs to take a step back. And he leaves Bess the entirety of the youth center, which I'm like, Bess has an entire area to screw around with her girlfriend. Anyway, sexual jokes out there. Back to serious points. So now that the third victim sadly has been slain, there's only one more person for the Copperhead to find next, and the one that Temperance is looking for. So whoever is getting the weird war flashback dreams is the fourth person. And we get a very badly edited shot of the war, and we see one of the other victims, and we see the fourth person, which I'm very sad to say, it's Ace. Ace is the fourth victim. or he will be the fourth victim, which I'm like, okay, the priorities have changed, the mission has changed. The next episode better be Operation Protect Ace at all costs, because if Ace dies, I'm done with the show. I'm done. That's my bold statement. Probably not, but, you know, we'll see. Because that's where the episode ends. Ace finds out that he's the next Copperhead victim. He's the one Tempest needs, and, you know, everything's at head here. Everyone has everything up in stakes right now, so that leaves us to I think, honestly, the most... And before you say anything, well, technically, they were all about to die from the Lair a couple seasons ago at that finale. Does this top? Yes. For some reason, these stakes top that one. So, yeah, so that's where this penultimate episode ends. So, yeah, I didn't have any witty banner to say. No, I really liked this episode. I really did. I thought it was a really good setup for the finale. Everyone had a moment to play. Everyone's going to have a piece of the role, piece of the pie to play through. And honestly, this finale can go either of any direction. So I'm very excited for next week's finale. I can't wait to see how that all ends. In terms of this episode specifically, I like the groups. I like the storylines to tackle on. Again, they were doing as much as they can, because I'm pretty sure with the finale, they're very stacked. Like, every moment in the finale is going to matter. So, and it's going to be very tight as is. So this episode definitely serves as like, we're getting as much as the remaining like secondary plot details out, because we are not going to have time to fully address them in the end, which I found to be great. George dealing with her family and being completely honest with them. Nick having that revelation about himself. Ace and Nancy still their undetermined future. And again, like, Bess gets that photograph of like what could happen to the town if Tempest's plan succeed, and it's a complete demolition. So again, I'm just very interested to see how next week's gonna go. I'm really am. This episode did like this did what any penultimate episode can do. It definitely gives you, these are the real stakes here, and that's honestly something that for me, a good amount of the shows I've watched in recent years have not done that. It was just like a very casual, like, here's a lead in, and that's it. This actually set everything up, and I'm very excited to see how it's all going to come to a head. So this did its job, it did its purpose, and I really, really enjoyed it. So with that being said, I'm going to give this episode, hopefully my mic's not going to fall. It's going to fall. Two thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this week's episode of Nancy Drew. I'm always down for conversation down below, as always. And that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's the Two from ActionX, reviewing every episode in the third season of Nancy Drew. If you want to know what we're doing normally in What's the Two besides our Nancy Drew reviews, we're currently doing Walker Season 2 episode reviews and Rookie Season 4 episode reviews each and every week after brand new episodes on the CW and ABC, respectfully. But if you don't care about Nancy Drew, here's kind of the roadmap for you to know about for now. Next week is our season finale review. That's right, the big old season finale next Saturday night. I know this was delayed because of How I Met Your Father and everything. I apologize for that. Things just happen out of my control, so nothing I can do on that. So this Saturday, stay tuned. Big finale, big old finale review. Depending on my mood next week, we're probably going to get into the season 4 predictions. Hopefully, if we get picked up, because right now the CW has not yet renewed any of their shows from new seasons. I know with everything with the CW sale and everything, that kind of puts everything in a big question mark, but I'm hopeful that it will come back, so we'll see how that all goes. And also for then the week after that, we'll have the season 3 review. That will be spoiler free. And then regardless of how season 4 happens, if we do get one, later this year, probably by this fall, we will get a season 1 spoiler-filled review that will kind of be the definitive Nancy Drew season 1 review. So stay tuned for that. But again, if you're unaware, this has been What's the Two from ActionX. Please subscribe to us on YouTube.com, some ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode review is live. Please also follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates we might have for the channel. And please also like, favorite, share this review if you want to, because it helps us get us out there to other members of the Drew Crew fan base who have yet to discover us. I butchered my words in the end, which is definitely a telltale sign. It is late. I am tired. I need to go to bed. So again, for all you members of the Drew Crew out there, I'll see y'all next week for the big old season 3 finale. But until then, stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.